All right, guys, for the classification of HTML by uniqueness. So far, so good. We've been on a series on HTML so far as a software developer. If you are starting off to know more about um, the front end, like a web engineer, I think HTML is a language you should really understand how it works and how the browser works too. So we've looked at HTML by the classifications, classification by tag, classification by level, and now we are about to dig deeper and to dive deeper into knowing the classification by uniqueness. Now, whenever a language evolves, like you shouldn't doubt me if I say that the current way, or should I say the updated way of saying education is education. So same thing applies in programming, that a language in programming, a kind of a particular language or a technology in programming evolves to in the tech ecosystem. The way it's being spelled, the way it's being said. So as a developer or as an engineer when as it pertains to the tech ecosystem, you should always be up and doing to learn the new syntax or the new way of going about writing a particular language or using a particular technology. So this is why we want to look at classification by uniqueness on HTML element. Now, when we talk about uniqueness, something is unique. It means at some point it's irreplaceable. Okay. So the classification by uniqueness here, we are looking at elements that are so unique in the HTML elements that they cannot be replaced, irrespective of the number of versions of the HTML that will keep on coming up, HTML6, HTML7, up to HTML56. So we are here to discuss elements that will not be subject to change or become obsolete with respect to time when the version of HTML is evolving. Okay, so another important reason why they are called unique elements is because of the way they are being used. Okay, another way of knowing them is by saying they are formatting elements, and they are either phrase elements or they are being called markup elements. Why they are called formatting elements or a unique element is because they have the ability to help we as developers in using just their unique behaviors without the need for CSS or JavaScript. A very good example is the mark element tag. Soon enough, we'll be jumping to the screen where I will show you example and their use cases. Okay, another good example is the use of details and summary to build accordion. Accordion is one aspect in JavaScript that we can implement using jQuery or vanilla JavaScript itself. Okay, but here we can use HTML to achieve this. In a situation, you can use HTML to do the work of CSS, or you use HTML to do the work of JavaScript. At that point, it means we are using formatting element or a unique element in HTML to handle the work that a work in which another technology in the tech ecosystem should have done that. So this is why they are called unique element. First, remember, irrespective of the versions of HTML that will be coming up, they cannot be replaced because they are unique. Second, they help in terms of helping we as developers to do without the use of CSS or Python or JavaScript. Example, the accordion. Another example is like using the field set and the legend. The field set and the legend helps in terms of bringing in borders and setting in styling in terms of positioning. So we can do away with the use of CSS to set border to 1 pixel solid black. We'll see that, and also do away with relative positioning or absolute positioning to bring in a stylish heading to our forms. All right. With this being said, I would love to explain with my screen. So jumping into my screen, jumping into my screen. Okay. All right. So now looking at Okay, they can never be called obsolete. And categories, the phrase element, and we also have the markup element. Now, for the phrase element, which is the Thalys element tag, EM, which is the emphasis, like we use it in stressing emphasis on the web page. Let's say, for instance, we want someone to pay attention to a particular text on the web page. We use these elements to accomplish that. Okay, simple code. Okay, what I'm doing here is that I'm using I'm using HTML entity to write pi. You know, we can't produce pi. Okay, give me a minute. Let me run this my code. All right. I'm using HTML entity to produce this HTML symbol that we can't get it from our keyboard. We can't get it using our keyboard, but we can produce it using HTML entity. That's I'm using ML entity. HTML entity is a combination of the ampersand and let's also the hashtag and alphanumeric like alphabet and numbers to produce special symbols like the Naira symbol. We don't have Naira symbol. For the Nigerians, we don't have Naira symbol on our keyboard. For ability to produce the Naira symbol is by the combination of symbol and hashtag and a semicolon at the end. This will produce special symbols that we can't find them on our keyboard. Okay, so this is how to produce my pie. I want to color my pie. I'll use the mark elements at this mark page, the styles and the feels and the look of the web product. Okay, that's the work of CSS. But the ability for me to add colors without having to head down to my CSS file to apply the color so that I can see the changes in on the web page whenever I want to add colors and artistic view. Ability to do those things without a need for the CSS is why we call these elements formatting elements, because they do the work of CSS. CSS does the work of formatting our web page. Now, by default, let's take a look at the web page. Let me explain this. By default, we have what we call default browser styles. Default browser style. That's by default, I've not written a CSS that should give me a text color of black for my content on the web page. But by default, Google Chrome gives me a text color of black and a font size of 16 for my text. So I can override this by using my CSS. Okay, I can do this to change the colors and all of that with my CSS. But the ability for me to do it without my CSS is by using an element that can do the work of CSS. It's the work of CSS to use, is the work of CSS by using CSS to format view of our web page or our web product. But since CSS is out of the game, how can I do this using the HTML element? I can do this by using a class of a specific class of HTML element called the formatting element. According to the formatting, it means I can use this to format the feel and the look of my web page or my web product. So in order to achieve this, we have a lot of the elements out there that we can use in formatting our web page just by using HTML. One of it is the mark. So I've applied the mark, refreshing, you can see it applies a yellow background color to my pie, okay? A yellow background color to my pie. So that's one good use of the element tag. It means that so long as this has a unique display or a unique role in playing in HTML, this cannot be obsolete, not be obsolete. Okay. So another very good important of a markup, a phrase element is the emphasis element tag. Let's say, for instance, I want to write I am not alone, and I want a user to pay attention to this text. I can use the emphasis element tag to do this. So if I should refresh, you see it's an inline element tag. You see that it comes side by side with the mark element tag, and it has given emphasis on this text. In that, as a user, if I'm jumping on this site, I will have to pay attention to this text that has been italicized or has been emphasized. part there, we have the subscript. Let's say, for instance, I want to write, as science students, we know about the chemical formula for water, H2O. I want to write H2O. How do I go about that? In order to achieve this, I can use the phrase element tag. So I can write my H with my subscript element tag. I can write my 2. Can write my 2 superscript. Let's say, for instance, I want to write my pi radius square. I can write my radius in square. I use my superscript. Use my super R instead of 2. Using HTML entities, then my radius with the R key, as you know that. Then using my phrase element tag, take it to the top. Okay, so this one good use cases of the phrase element tag. How about the markup element tag? For the markup element tag, we have a combination of the summary and details to produce accordion. Now, accordion can be produced using jQuery, but we can also achieve this using HTML. Okay, we can also achieve accordion using like using JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript. Okay, that's a common JS or the ES module JS. Okay, so to also achieve this in HTML, we have a combination of elements in HTML, which is the summary combined with the details will give you this effect. Same thing applies to set and the legend. Okay, that's for the markup element that helps you do the work of JavaScript and CSS. Okay, it helps you do the work of JavaScript and CSS is the markup element. So let's take a look. To produce the accordion, we use a comp, which is the details. Then we have our summary inside the details. It's just like give me details, then summarize it. Okay, something like that. Something of that nature. Summary. Then with this, I can now, okay, I can now, my summary should hold the read more. Okay, read more. Click here to read more. You've been seeing that. Okay, this is how to use the details and summary to produce your results. So if we should check this out on the web page, on clicking this, it displays read more, and I'm clicking on the read more, it takes it off. Okay, read more. So using HTML without the need to stick to JavaScript. You see that is why they are called unique elements. Then about the field sets, a quick look at the field sets. We have now one thing with the HTML is letters, or can make them all in small letters and I'll still have my results. This is one advantage with the HTML. It doesn't look at if you're using small letters or capital letters, if you're using uppercase or lowercase in performing or writing your elements. It still gives you a result. Okay, so that's one thing with the text, writing a particular element a way it shouldn't be, and it will still show you that you are correct. Okay, but it's bad because at that point you are wrong, but it's giving you your results. So it's always good to stick to the coding convention. What's the coding convention in HTML? Use small letters, not capital letters. And secondly, whenever you are writing an element inside an element, you make it look like writing it this way, so that my code will be readable and it's good enough to bring in someone to make a team to help me build this particular web product. Okay, so let's say for instance I want to design a form with a caption called sign up. So I can use my field sets and legend, and this should give me a nice looking result. Can you see that? Positioning the sign up at the top without the need to use CSS and the display of absolute and relative and all of that. And the work of my field sets, what the field set has done is that it has given me this border and also ability to take up the right up to the top. That's the work of the legend. The legend gives this stylish positioning of the write-up at the top, while the other of my form is the work of the field set. So this is one good use cases of HTML because it has a unique feature of bringing in elements that can help you with your CSS and your JavaScript. I hope you learned something unique about this. If there is any challenges, if you have any doubt and anything about what you've learned from this video, you can do well to drop a comment below this video, and we'll do well to get back to you or give you a response. Thank you for watching the video. Bye bye.